Kayla, welcome to the show.
I'm really excited to be here and to dive into the gene keys with you and maybe a little bit of human design because I know that's new for you as well.
This is going to be interesting. We've never done anything like this before on the podcast. And yeah, before I kind of talk about that, why don't you just introduce yourself and let people know what it is that you do, the kind of people that you work with. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes. Okay. So my name's Kayla. I'm a human design and gene keys business coach, and I specifically help female entrepreneurs online with scaling their business through the lens of human design and gene keys. So what that looks like is I love to take the masculine business strategy, the structures, what it takes to sell, create a scalable product suite. And I love to bring in the nuance of what it means to honor your energy and your capacities and your zones of genius so that what you scale is sustainable to you and it doesn't feel like a cookie cutter approach. So that's some of the work that I love to do with ladies. And I'm obviously very woo-woo, but also strategic at the same time. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today.
Me too, because I am skeptical in terms of, and we've had this conversation offline and we both know how this is kind of how we're moving into this. Because when I heard about this, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And so I looked at it a little bit, and the information that I could see online was so contradictory that I was like, this just really feels like made up. And so then I left it, right? And more it's gaining popularity. So I'd love to hear your perspective around that. Like, tell us about what human design and everything actually kind of is. How do you talk about it? Explain.
Yes. Okay. So human design, I'll talk about human design and gene keys. So they're two different systems, but they share commonalities. So human design was created by a man named Ra, and he basically synthesized. We have the chakra system, we have astrology, we have the Kabbalah tree, we have the energetic systems in terms of what you need from your birth date, time, and location to show you a body graph. And that body graph shows you how you're energetically designed to take action in your life or in your business. So part of the human design system, when you look at the chart, and we're going to be screen sharing in a little bit here, you're going to see lots of numbers inside the centers. The centers are the shapes that you have on the graph. And these numbers are from the I Ching system. So this comes from a Chinese divination text. It's known historically as the 64 hexagrams. And these are 64 streams of consciousness, which is like, what is that? So fluffy, right? But the point of using the system is to really have a contemplative approach to life. And just to notice these way that these frequencies or these streams of consciousness show up, the way that you take action in your life. Like, in spirituality, we hear about shadow work, or even if we get really, standard level of mindset and self-limiting beliefs, it's really looking at where are these mindset shifts and beliefs coming from. And so the gene keys in human design are really a tool to approach that in a way that feels less cookie cutter of let's reframe this limiting belief and really looking at here's where these patterns show up in these areas of life. Like, what's been your experience up until this point? And it creates a more personal experience in terms of the way that you shift how you show up in your life and in your business. So the gene keys, they are astrology and the I Ching system. So they use those 64 hexagrams that I talked about, and they create 3 different sequences. So I'm actually going to screen share at this point so you can see it because you're newer to this and your audience might be really new as well. But the really beautiful thing with, hold on, I'm just trying to screen share and it's not working.
So if you're listening on audio, hop on over to YouTube to see this, and we'll put that link in the show notes as well, so you can jump on over and have a look. We'll put the images maybe on the blog too.
Yeah. So right now what we're looking at we have your gene keys here. So if you're looking at this, or if you're listening because you don't have a screen to look at, I'll talk it out for you. So you have 11 different spheres, circles connected by lines. There's 3 different colors on here. So the activation sequence is the green. This is all about developing core stability in your life and in your business. So energetically, it shows you the main challenges that you experience in your life and business. The Venus sequence is the red sequence, and this is all about relationships. This is all about what it takes to open up your heart to unconditional love. And I love to use the sequence to help people connect deeper with their clients through storytelling rather than just talking about problems and desires when it comes to messaging. And then we have the Pearl sequence, which we'll dive into a bit deeper today. And the Pearl sequence is all about prosperity. And what I mean by prosperity is that it's not just about money. It's about how you're designed to support your clients through the work that you do. So for each of, you'll see lots of numbers in here as well. So if I zoom in here, let's say we take a look at your life's work. In astrology, this is your conscious sun. So this energy is like the main energy that you experience, and it's like the main challenges that you may notice that you have as an entrepreneur in your business. So for example, Annalise, you have the 39th gene key here. I mentioned earlier, each gene key has a shadow, gift, and city. There's different energetic expressions. So the shadow side of this is provocation. Then we have the gift of dynamism and liberation. So what you may notice is that in your business, you're really here to provoke others and really initiate them into what it means to be dynamic with their work, really move beyond, certain barriers or certain experiences where maybe they don't enjoy the work that they do, and they really want to create something new and different so that they can have the freedom, liberation to create what it is that they want being an entrepreneur in their business. So that's just a small example of how I dive into the gene keys. But each sequence, there's 3 sequences, has their own theme. In the spheres, there's a gene key. Each gene key tells their own story. So as I dove into your life's work and I talked about the 39th really briefly, this is just a really unique way where if you're noticing provocation for yourself, like you're feeling provoked in your business, you're feeling provoked by others, when you have the gene keys here, you can really look at and ask yourself, how can I be dynamic? What would it look like to be dynamic rather than feeling like I'm sitting here being poked like a bear so that I can liberate myself from the current circumstances? So that was a little bit of a riff, but I also want to check in because I know this is newer for you. And I'm curious how that lands so far.
Well, in my work, yes, that is what I do, in that I don't live a standard kind of, cookie cutter life. And I do help people tap into their, like, what they actually want from their life and create their business to support the life that they want. So I guess that that fits in there. What I'm really curious about, and we can come back to diving into this, but how does the time that we're born impact how I am in the world? That just seems really random to me. Do you know what I mean? Because I was already alive, just not Earthside. So why is the minute that I become Earthside change kind of who I am in the world? That's I can't wrap my brain around that.
Yeah, no, I love that. So because astrology is a really big component of human design and gene keys, your birth time determines, in that moment, if you were to take a screenshot of the placements of the planets, they're energetically represent an imprint at that time. And actually, if you go into Google or YouTube and you look up neutrinos, scientifically, neutrinos have an energy that pass through everything and anything at any point. So the moment that you're born, what happens is it's like a screenshot is taken, you come to the Earth side, and that is the planetary placements at the moment that you were, brought onto this Earth, 3D. And so with astrology, it shows the story of your energetic experience and that imprinting that happened the moment that you came to Earthside. And it just gives you an opportunity to contemplate why you experience things the way that you do. And I'm really somebody, I'm not a binary person. I'm not saying this is how it is, but it gives a sense of freedom, because I find sometimes as humans, we have our ego and we're trying to figure things out. And it's what about this? What about this? And we get very much in our head. But when we can have a tool like astrology or using human design or gene keys, and we can just be curious, well, I have noticed these patterns in relationships, or I have actually noticed these patterns in my career or my relationship with money or my health. And it gives you a sense of freedom because you can choose to see it differently rather than just listening to what your mind has to say about it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess this whole screenshot, image is more helpful to me. Yeah. Thank you for explaining it that way.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm still like, yeah, I think I'm closer. I'm going to have a look at this. What did you say? Neutrinos.
Yeah, neutrinos.
Okay.
Look it up. There's
Okay,
like
I'll look at that.
science. This isn't completely
Yeah.
fluff and air. Like if you look that up, it will
Yeah.
explain to you like, oh, okay, there's literally a scientific impact from energy planets that
Mhm.
affects the 3D concrete elements that we have in this space right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? I will say this. I just want to say, I know that when we hopped on the call, and you're like, I think I know my human design, but I'm not sure. And you thought you were a manifester. And obviously, we looked up your chart and you are a manifester. But I'm curious if you'd be interested in me sharing a little bit about your human design, because I feel like this might,
Sure.
I'm curious if it would resonate. So here's,
Sure. And
yes.
in the context of that, so people that I interact with that are really into human design or are being guided by someone who, like yourself, is an expert in this area and are doing coaching, ask questions like, should I launch this week based on my human design? Or should I and for me as a strategist, I'm like, just bloody do it. Like, and I keep my mouth shut. But in my head, I'm like, you're letting this control you. So how far do we take this? What's your approach to that traditional auspicious, inauspicious stuff in the Chinese where you're like, oh, don't go outside today because it's an inauspicious day. Like, where are we on the scale of that?
Oh my God. I love that you asked me this question. I'm actually going to come back so we can see like your full chart, because I think that this is just going to be able to paint a really clear picture in terms of, we'll just talk about human design for a minute. Like the way you talk about, oh, should I launch this week? That is a conversation around astrology in terms of, there's certain themes that you may experience and based on the planetary influences. Like I'm sure you've heard of Mercury retrograde, or, we've got a full moon or a new moon, and there's certain energetic experiences that people may have. But I'm going to talk about you being a manifester. And then I want to talk about how, like, if I were coaching a client, how I would actually use this in a strategic way. So you are a 2-4 splenic manifester, and you're probably like, what the heck is this? So what that means that manifestors, first of all, are only 9% of the population. So you have a more rare human design type, and you're unique in your design because you're meant to initiate. You're here to inform, and you'll notice that you may operate in cycles where it's like you get these urges and you're going to start projects and move things forward. And what works really well for you is to have either a team or an assistant to help you follow through with that, because you're really going to be somebody who initiates new ideas and brings new things to life, whether it's in business, whether it's relationships. And every type, so the manifestor, for example, your signature, when things are in alignment for you, working for you, you're going to feel a sense of peace. When things are not going well, you're going to feel anger. And I consider these to be your feedback loops, where it's just to tell you, like, how am I taking action right now? And so one of the big things is like, let's talk about launching, right? So what I noticed with manifestors, I've worked with them, is like you operate in cycles. If you were to be somebody who had an evergreen all the time, where you have to be on calls every single week, and there's going to be a lot of like hands-on workshop things with your clients, what you will find sustainable are, if it works for you, to have those launches, but then have obviously monthly recurring revenue, so that if you need to pull back and reflect, you can do that guilt-free. Whereas let's say for myself, I'm a generator. I can have evergreen. I have sustainable energy where I could launch every month. It doesn't affect me the same way that it would affect, let's say, yourself as a manifestor. So I have more to say on that, but I just want to check in because I just divulged a lot of information on you.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I hate having meetings that are standard, like feeling like I hate having to be somewhere at a certain time. So that I really do. But the whole, if things aren't going well, I'm angry, and if things going well, I'm peaceful. Like, isn't that just everyone? Being like, of course, everything's calm. Like, woohoo.
I think one of the biggest things with a manifestor is because you have so much power with your voice, it's like when things are going well, what that looks like for you is like people are responding to you. Like you're informing, you're like, this is what's going on, this is what's happening, this is where we're going. And you've got the support and you've got, systems in place to back you up. And that anger might come from you spending your energy or someone really asking and like demanding a lot from you. And you're like, let me be in my zone of genius. Like I'm working on this project right now. This is the thing that I'm doing. Like I will come to you when I'm ready. Like you're not designed to be pulled in or to respond to things. That's why you value freedom and having the spaciousness to be able to do what it is you want when you want. Right. So the cyclical nature of a manifester is like, and I explain this to people in seasons where the urge that you feel is like, oh my God, I'm so excited about this. And there can be this burst of energy where you can focus on it. You want to hone in on it, not be interrupted. And then it comes into like, that's the spring. The summer is like, you're working on it. Then let's say the fall comes and maybe you're kind of losing interest or you're losing some steam. And like, that's the part where you want to make sure you have people supporting you in the work that you're doing. And then we go into winter where it's like, okay, like full pullback, you're tired, you need to recharge, reflect. And then you're designed to wait for that next urge to initiate the next thing that you're bringing to life. So I'm a generator. I would not operate that way. For me, it's like what lights me up. I'm going to build this thing. Like, let's launch every month. Like, yes, let's have calls every week. I resonate with that. So the way that I use human design with business is like, there's a nuance there. Even if we were both doing the same niche and we have different niches, there is a way to approach it differently. And it's like when people ask the question, like, but strategy work, but it doesn't work for me. It's like, here's why it doesn't work. Like, look at how you're designed to operate. And that's the nuance that people usually lack when it comes to like energetics like this in business.
So then would you suggest then people who are in those cycles, just if they're feeling uninspired, to not launch?
Yeah, literally. But here's the thing. Here's the caveat. It's not don't launch, sit back and manifest and let the world support you. It's looking at what systems do you have in place? Do you have funnels? Are you running ads so that you can make passive income? Oh, your kids are off from school for 2 months and you want to pull back and spend time with your family. What strategic automations and things do you have in place? Did you plan your full years to honor those cycles that you have, knowing when you need time off? So it is looking at strategically planning, but also understanding that if you try to force yourself to launch as a manifester when you really feel like you need to pull back, you're going to burn out, you're going to be angry, and no one is going to get the best of you, including yourself.
Okay. So I kind of operate from the strategic, put things in place, but also knowing, like, I'm a very disciplined person. So if I don't feel like it, I can just do it anyway. And yeah, I might not be really happy with that, but I get the job done. Like, especially as someone who, like, my income, not my, like, the money that comes, I'm the only one who generates income in our household. So if I don't, there's 4 children and a husband and a mortgage and like, do you know what I mean? So it's just been, I think that's what has been my mindset and stance. So when people are going, should I launch, should I not? I'm like, if you want a business, like, come on, let's go. But I do see your point in that, like, is it feeling actually, have you got the momentum and the energy behind it?
Totally.
So, yeah.
Because that's what builds sustainability. And you said it, like you saying, like, yeah, I can like push through and do it. So this center here on your chart, it's like the little small triangle. This is known as the heart center, the will center, the ego center. This is all about your drive and your desires. So this center, like when you have anything that is defined in your chart, is where you have consistent energy available to execute consistently. So you having a defined heart is like, you are always going to have that drive. There's always going to be that little bit left in the gas tank to like drive things over, even if you feel like you're proving it to yourself and you're proving it to others. And you said you're going to get it done, even if you're angry, you're tired or exhausted or whatever. So there's like the nuances with, you can look at your chart. You always are going to have that drive. You have your spleen defined. Your spleen is your authority. That's how you're designed to make decisions. And so what that means for you as a manifester is like, you intuitively know what's best for you. It's like a full body yes. Like, yes, this is physically correct for me. No, this is not. You're very aware of physically health-wise, what's correct for you, what's best for you. And it's like a little whispering and a knowing, like you just have this sixth sense of meeting someone, having a conversation and knowing like, yes, this is correct for me. So that's going to be a way that you make decisions in business, whether you realize it's strategic or not. That's another way that you can connect with your human design, especially the manifestors, like trusting that those intuitive nudges, despite being super strategic, you can still have a lot of intuition guiding you.
Mm-hmm. How does this then play into relationships? And I know we're talking about business today, but relationships with like team members or like your romantic partner or friends, like,
yes,
do we connect with people that are kind of opposite to us? Do we connect with people that are more similar? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, I love this question. So talking about whether it's, romantic relationships, platonic, children, or business, for example, is I find when you understand your own human design and you know the human design of the people that you're working with, you understand why they are better at doing certain tasks over others, or you're going to understand why they are a genius at what it is that they do. So let's say, for example, if I was building a team and I was looking to hire you and I saw your human design, I would say, okay, she's going to have, so the green center at the top here, your ajna, I'm going to know like she's going to be really great at having like very unique perspectives and precise ways of doing things. And because of this channel, the 1156, she's going to have a really unique way of sharing and telling the story on how things need to be done. Your throat center right away, be like, Kate, she's going to have a strong voice. And this channel here, the 16 to 48, she's going to understand what it means to take things to a mastery level, to know what's physically correct, to moving forward, trusting that intuition. She's going to have the drive and she's going to have that internal pressure to also get things done. Other nuances is I would never hire a manifestor and be like, you're going to respond to me every day. I'm going to drop things in this channel on Slack. You're going to go and implement it. 10 things need to be done a week. I would never do that to a manifestor. I actually hired someone on my team. They're a manifesting generator. And I'm like, good. I know exactly how you operate. So I can throw things at her. She can handle multitasking and it doesn't piss her off. So that's why I love using this, because you can find those nuances. I would put you in a position where you're leading people, where you're like the visionary and you're going to be instigating and initiating the projects that we're working on. Curious if that resonates with you.
Interesting. Oh yeah, totally. I couldn't manage anything without my team. It's like the inbox comes like, do this please, do this please, do this please. And that whole, when you mentioned like getting excited about something and getting in a hole, that's what I was doing this morning. I was in a little like a hole, and then I looked at my calendar and I was like, oh, I have a meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So then in terms of this, what else would you is really the like the flip negative side of this, that there's the cycles?
So do you mean your own manifestor cycles? Like if that's a negative thing?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily, like I can see both sides, right? But if you're looking at this going, okay, this is something that you need to put strategies around because these are the things that are going to be less helpful, is it more the cycles or is there other stuff here?
I would say, like, because that is one of the most prominent themes with manifestors, and manifesting generators experience it too, because they're a hybrid between generators and manifestors. But yeah, like let's say if I was coaching someone who's a manifestor in business, I would say that like you need to prioritize making sure that you have systems and things in place to support you in your cycles. Because there are going to be days where you are literally going to come to a full stop, like hit a wall, and it's like you need to be able to pull back and let yourself sit and receive like the energy and the rest that you need so that you can go and initiate the next thing. So if somebody was like, I'm gonna scale my business to 6, 7 figures as a solopreneur manifestor, I would be like, good luck. That's not the best situation for you. This is why. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with that, because everyone operates differently. Everyone has their zones of genius. I hate it when people are like, oh, I hate that I'm a projector. I wish I was a generator because I'd have all this energy. That's not it. Like everyone has their own unique zones of genius. Like I said, if I was hiring a manifestor, I'd be like looking at your chart. I'd be like, okay, this person needs to be in a position where they are initiating and they're spearheading and guiding a team rather than in the grunt work of doing the behind the scenes of it all. So that's the thing. I want everyone to feel empowered by their design and never think, oh, I am lacking this, or I don't have definition here, because the point is you are meant to be unique. This is how you're meant to live your life and make a difference, create a legacy, support your clients. Like it's very unique. It's not cookie cutter.
Oh, totally. We need everything, right? Like the human body has all of these different parts. And that's how I think about the human population. It's like we're like, yeah, like maybe you're a hand and you want to be a head, but like we need a hand.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, that's okay. And then let's go back and dig into a little bit more of the strategy side. With the whole, do I launch now? Do I not launch now? How do you then guide your clients on knowing how, like, how do I word this question? So for me, I think that the way that we feel is like coming back to the discipline thing and how I operate. It's like, it kind of doesn't matter how I feel. I'm going to the gym because I know that I'll feel better afterwards. And the same, it's like, I know I need to show up. I know, like, I'm just going to do it because I know that these actions that are maybe really hard give me the life that I want. It's the same as selling, right? I know if I don't sell to people, I'm not going to make any money. And yes, selling's not comfortable, and selling's like, you know, kind of something that would rather do the website and the logo and the copy and the pretty social media posts than actually go out there and have conversations with people. And so how do you then balance, okay, this is how you're designed versus like, you just need to get out there and bloody do it. Like, how do you navigate that nuance? Because there's certain things that we need to do, right?
Totally. Yeah, I love this question. I think the biggest thing is, so let's say we zoom out. We talk about launching, we talk about selling, we talk about making money. You need to have the strategy side of looking at, okay, what is it like? Basics. Who's your ideal client? What's the niche? What's their problems? What their desires? Okay, you have an offer. You're selling this thing. Great. You want monthly recurring revenue? Do you have payment plans? Awesome. Are you running ads? Is it evergreen? Are you doing launches? So then you need to look at, okay, this is how many times, if you have a goal of making 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, 7 figures a year, okay, what is your monthly plan, your quarterly plan? Like, you need to look at the masculine structure of what's needed to have a business operate. And then you need to look at, well, it's a lot of work for one person. Great. You need to hire someone. You need to train them and realize this is specifically where I need help. So when it comes to the nuance of showing up and selling every day, for example, I think it's a couple things. It's either like someone is so burnt out because they've been launching, they've been doing the things, they haven't been refining, they've just been pouring gasoline on things that aren't working, and therefore they don't want to do it anymore. They haven't got the gratification of selling every day. Or somebody doesn't know what it is that they're selling. They're like not confident. They've got mindset issues around it. So when it comes to looking at, like, let's say you do have a solid business, you want to show up every day, you want to sell, you've got content, you've got a podcast, you've got YouTube, whatever it is, you're on your stories. Yeah, you need to look at, do I need to leverage some automation so that it's not just me showing up and recording myself on video selling every day, but also, can I use ManyChat? Can I set up a reel to get comments below and have that automation so that they're getting emails, they're getting tagged in Kajabi, and then being, prompted to come up into my funnel and sell. So there's the very strategic side. But let's say, for example, you being a manifestor, like, the way to sell is going to be using your voice, initiating people, awakening people, like lighting that fire under their app, being like, the doors are open for 5 days. This is what we're doing. We're going from this time to this time. This is what's available. Snap, here's the link. Like, that's the vibe from a manifestor, is like informing, initiating. So let's say with the generator, for me, the way that I sell, I'm so excited and lit up about the work that I'm doing. I'm going to show behind the scenes. I have no problem having like the doors open for 2 weeks. I'm going to be doing a lot of posts, a lot of emails. Like, I don't have any problem scheduling those things because I like doing those things.
You're like an Energizer bunny.
Yes, literally. It's the amount of content that I pump out is, people are like, what the fuck, Kehla? And I'm like, hey, I've been doing this for 6 years. Like, it's very normal for me. But that's the nuance, right? That's why I love looking at the strategic side of things, but then also looking at what is the slight nuance that you bring to the table through your design. I'm curious how that resonates with you.
So what I am kind of hearing is that you would look at somebody's chart or encourage them to look at their chart and then create a strategy based on that is going to give them multiple layers of scaffolding and support. So be like, okay, like plan A is great, you're launching. If you're really not feeling like it, you have these things to fall back on, or you have these things set up and ready to fall back on. Okay,
Totally.
that makes more sense as a strategist to me,
Totally.
because systems are the backbone, right? Systems and people.
Totally. And the other thing I would say too, for you specifically, because you're a 2-4, so if you look up here, you have a 2 and a 4. So we have
How do
your
you remember what
side.
all of these things mean? There's like 47,000 numbers.
I know. It's because I've been looking at charts for years. Like, actually, I think I've only been doing human design stuff for like 4 years, which isn't that long. Some people have been doing it for a while, but I breathe this every day. So I'm like, I love it. But let's talk about sales for a second. So you're a 2-4 splenic manifester. Each profile has their own unique way of showing up in the world. And so it's funny because the 2-4, there's a bit of a paradox here, because the 2 line is like you consciously have this natural way and flow of doing things. And people are like, oh my gosh, like, how do you know this? How did you do this? And it's like, once they ask you, then you can see, oh yeah, that actually is quite brilliant. Here's how I did it. And then there's also this aspect where you want to go and share with the world, but then you also want to pull back and just not be seen. Like, leave me alone. Then the unconscious side of the 4th line is all about connection. It's all about networks. It's all about giving the resources to your people. And also the 4th line really values like referral base or connection. And you always want to check in. Like, let's say you're going to go do something or invest in something. Like, if somebody gives you their opinion of their experience, you're more likely to trust it. So there's this juxtaposition between the 2 and the 4 line. And when we look at selling, for example, like the way that whenever I work with 4 lines, like whether they're a 4-6, a 2-4, a 4-1, 1-4, I always say, like, how can you create an experience where you connect with your community in the way that you're selling, even if you're setting up an automation? So I'll give you an example. I was working with a 4-6 projector, and similar energy patterns as a manifester, where it's like they don't have the same energizer experience as a generator or a manifesting generator. And she's like, Kehla, I really want to sell my card decks. Like, I've been able to sell, like, my goal is 13 in a month. I've been running ads, but like, I don't just want to keep running ads. I'm like, yeah, you need to connect with your community. So I gave her the idea to create a reel with all of her cards flashing through. And I said, get your people to take a screenshot, comment the card below. ManyChat can send them an automation. She's like, oh my God. And she can repurpose that every month, because what she was doing is showing up every month to do this live card pulling. And she's like, this is so exhausting. I don't want to be doing this. She sold 5 card decks in one day, and she had over 130 comments on the reel. So she was able to, connect with the people who were interested in her card deck. And then she had automation set up in the back, and she's like, Kayla, I can't believe it. I can reuse this every month. And I actually got to connect with my community. And I was like, yes. So just these little tweaks of looking at different aspects of your human design and seeing how can you sell, how can you set up automation, but still be true to like how you're designed to connect with people.
Mm-hmm. And then how did the gene keys come into that?
Yeah.
Because I know that you're like super passionate about that part.
Yeah. So with the gene keys, we're diving into both today, which is really exciting. But with the gene keys, I guess give me a specific question you want me to answer. Do you want me to talk about, we're going to dive into the Pearl sequence and talk about what it means to be of service, or whatever angle you want me to take. I'm still not
totally clear on what this part is. So what I think I understand is that there's been, and I don't know if I'm confusing this with the human design part, is that there's all of these different, like ways of thought that have been overlaid to see the common consistencies, like the through lines, and then that is this. Is that what I'm looking at here?
Yeah, I'll give you another explanation now that we have the visual app. I'll show you more specifically so you can see the overlay. So we'll go back to your hold on here. We're going to go back to your main chart, your human design chart, so that I can show you the astrology side. Yes, but I want to show you
Okay.
something that you can't see in the corner. So do you see all these symbols?
Yeah.
So the black column, this is like your unconscious energetic astrology imprinting. And this is your conscious astrology imprinting. So all these symbols here, all of the numbers with the symbols are the numbers inside of the centers. The numbers inside the centers are the 64 hexagrams from the I Ching system that I had mentioned earlier. And those numbers in the astrology components are what create the gene keys. So now when we go to look at the gene keys, what we're going to see is, where is it? Hold on here. When we look at the gene keys, the planets that were on the left and right hand side of your chart, 11 of those have come over into making these 3 sequences. So that's how they're connected. It's the same birth information, it's the same planetary placement, but now this is just pulling like 11 planets aside and creating a different system that you can use to contemplate. I said earlier, the activation sequence is like the challenges and how you create stability in yourself and in your business. The Venus sequence is how you open up your heart and create more connection in your relationships with your ideal client. And then the Pearl sequence is how you create prosperity and take to depth how you're designed to be of service through the work that you do in your business. So the funny thing is, human design is here's your strategy and authority. This is how you take action. The gene keys are more feminine, and it's more looking at how does this show up in this specific area of life. And the art of contemplation is being curious, like concentrating but being meditative and just observing how those themes, like earlier when I talked about provocation, dynamism, and liberation, how does that show up for you in business? Where do you think that might be holding you back? Where do you think you are excelling in those energetic expressions? So there's like it's more feminine and flow with the gene keys, and then human design is more like structured how you take action. But I still layer strategy onto this in different conversations. So does that clarify what you were trying to explain earlier?
It does. But then can you just explain a little bit more around how you understand that these have been decided? Like, is it just that it's over time with thousands of people that they're like seeing different themes and mapping this out? Like, I just can't get my head around, like, how did they decide on these words, and how did they, like, do you know what I mean? It just feels so, I don't know, like pulled out of nowhere. And I'm sure
Yes.
it's not, but then I will leave it there. You keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about earlier when you were asking about your birth time, date, location, and I said it's like taking a snapshot of the sky, and that's the energetic imprinting astrologically on you. So there's 11 planets here that come from that. Now, the I Ching system, this comes from the Chinese culture. And so we're going back like centuries in terms of this work. And so I'm not specialized in like the specifics of the I Ching system, but coming from the Chinese divination text, like there was a point where, you know, when they decided the 64 gene keys, it also ties into like the 64 chromosomes that we have, like in our DNA. And so like gene keys, there is a to, you know, your body from a DNA system. I'm not going to get deep into that today, but if we look at it, comes from the Chinese divination text, and they were the 64 lines, or sorry, the 64 hexagrams. They each have their own energetic expression. I don't have the answer as to why they decided those specific energetic expressions for each of the gene keys, but at least the point is to show that each of the gene keys has their own story, has their own experience. So earlier when I was talking about life's work being the 39th gene key, and looking at how the shadow is provocation, how you're being provoked, how others are being provoked, like how does that show up in your business? How can you step into, let's say, your manifestor energy? If you're feeling provoked because you're overextending yourself, maybe you're pushing yourself beyond the cycle that you're meant to be in right now. So like that's the point, is the contemplation aspect and seeing how that energetic capacity shows up, rather than thinking, oh, I'm provoked and I'm just going to shift my mindset and keep going. Well, it's like, well, actually, what if you just got curious that maybe there's a reason why you're feeling provoked right now? So then with the dynamism and liberation, it's really looking at it like, okay, if provocation is showing me that I need to be dynamic right now and to pivot what it is that I'm doing, that's my access to what it means to be liberated in my work. So what does
Okay.
liberation look like for me? That's going to look different for you than it looks different than it's for me. So it's,
Totally.
I know it is, there's still like a very woo-woo component, but it's still relevant where you can see these patterns show up in your life and just be curious. There's no one answer. That's the thing.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what I got when I initially looked into it. And I was like, you're actually saying both sides of the coin at the same time. Like and I know then it's written by people, it gets diluted, and like I wasn't going to the source. And so I get all of that. But yeah, okay. Thank you for explaining that. So when you say life's work, what does that mean to you? Like how, because that feels really big to me. How central is that to how you work with people? Like,
Yes. So actually I'll share my human design chart and my gene keys because I can speak to this because I've spent the last couple of years contemplating, my life's work and all the other gene keys as well. And I'll show you how this shows up for me and how I bring it into like all aspects of my business. So my life's work is gene key 36. So the way that this shows up for me, like I said earlier, I'm a human design and gene keys business coach. And the entrepreneurs that I typically work with are the ones who, like, let's say I'm not somebody who has a story that I scaled to 6 figures in 6 months. It took me several years to hit the coveted goal of making that much money. So I noticed, and even I look back on my life, I look back on my entrepreneurial journey, the shadow of turbulence is so real for me. Like I have experienced so much turbulence as an entrepreneur, but it also has given me the grit and the audacity to show up and take up space. And so the other thing is when you look at the gift of humanity, so I look at, my experience of turbulence in my business, how it took me a long time to scale and to learn X, Y, and Z. When I share that story, there's particular ideal clients and niche that resonate with me. And I have this way of being very compassionate, which is the highest expression of the 36 gene key, where it's like, yes, maybe it has taken you a while to scale, but you're ambitious, you're showing up, you're making the moves. And it's not always going to be pretty rainbows and flowers. That's a humanity aspect. You may have massive lows in your business and high highs, but the way that I express myself and how I lead the entrepreneurs that I work with naturally comes from this lens. We didn't really talk about lines today, but I told you you're a 2-4. I'm a 6-2. So the sixth line of a teacher, I naturally role model the things that I've been through in life. So short story, in January of 2025, I had 2 family members die in 24 hours. And I was in the middle of a launch and I am a solopreneur. Like I just hired someone. It was a shitstorm. So for me, I went through that and I'm not somebody that hides things on the internet. I'm pretty honest. And I role modeled. I was like, here's the turbulence that I just went through. The middle of a launch, I had to fly across the country because my grandmother was dying. Here's how I handled it. That's a role model 6-line thing to do. Here's a humanity and still showing up for your family and still showing up for yourself and still having the courage to rebook your calls because you're in the middle of a launch. You can't do it. And having compassion and understanding that this is how it is. And so when you understand and you start to contemplate your gene keys, like when I see turbulence come up, I'm like, oh yes, like this is a teachable moment for me. And it just gives me this extra juice to really show up unapologetically and express myself. So that's my sharing, but I'm curious if you can see for yourself, like looking at the 39th, when we talked about provocation and dynamism and liberation, each of your gene keys tells a story and it gives you the permission, like it's your own permission to show up unapologetically.
For me, I see what you're saying in terms of it being a teachable moment, but a lot of them just feel like part of the human experience, right? All of them, we're all going to experience all of these things. Like I'm having a bit of a look, but is it just that your perspective is that these are the things that are more prevalent, that show up more often for you?
Yes. So when you have these gene keys activated, or like, let's say when you look at your human design chart And you and I have opposite centers defined. Like I have my G center, the one that's yellow in the middle, and my sacral defined. You don't have those defined. So the thing is that it doesn't mean, because again, it would be binary. Oh, I have these gene keys. I never experience anything else. That's not how it works. The point is that you're going to notice more of those common themes. Like if you look at just people in life, like you'll notice people in your life, they're more likely, they just seem to have health complications more often than you. And you're like, okay. Or you may notice somebody has more luck with winning the lottery. And it's like, well, why? There's always going to be themes that people experience more than others. And so I don't have, for example, I don't have the 39th gene key, but I can still contemplate it and see, well, what can I learn if feel like I'm being provoked somewhere in my life and business? And it can still kind of take me through that process of what it looks like to move through that energy.
Okay. All right. That makes more sense. So then I know you wanted to talk about the pearls. So how do you use the pearls when you work with someone?
Yes. So the pearl sequence, so we've got the 4 that are colored in here. They're like mostly blue. The pearl sequence is all about how you're designed to be of service. And if you're like, what does that mean? The biggest thing is looking at, and this is what I say to people, the shadows of each of the gene keys. So mediocrity, opinion, expectation, provocation. I love to help people consider like, okay, if you know your ideal client and your niche, where do you support clients in elevating the mediocrity of what it is they're doing in their life? Right? Looking at how can you help them create their own style and their own approach to business so that the work that they're doing is exquisite. So it's like using this as a tool, like how are you designed to be of service? So let's say, for example, like people, you can help people who may have an opinion about what it means to start their own business or to scale or to have an agency, whatever it is. And it's like, well, actually, farsightedness is the gift. How can we back out and see the whole picture? Let me help you see things differently. And then omniscience is like, how can it all coexist? Yes, you're going to have these doubts. Yes, you're going to have these opinions, and you can also see it this way. So when I love to help people, like if they're like messaging, they're like, I don't really know how to speak to my ideal client. It's like, well, let's just take a look at your gene keys. The pearl sequence, how you're designed to be of service, how you solve their problems. Doesn't matter what niche or industry you're in, but let's just look at, you could literally create a post, call people out. Here's where you're half-assing in your life. You're doing X, Y, and Z to fit in, check the box. But actually what you want is to do something in your own way. You want to create whatever it is, an offer. You want to scale to 6 figures. You want to be known for podcast guesting. How can you create an exquisite experience and stop settling for being mediocre? So you can literally take the gene keys and create messaging from it that resonates with your audience. So I know you had a bit of a smirk when I said that. I'm just curious how that landed for you.
Oh, I'm laughing because like the whole half-ass thing, I say that all the time. I'm like, full ass, people, full ass.
Oh my God, you say full ass? I love that. That's so funny.
Mostly in my head sometimes to, to people who can take it. But yeah, we don't, I often say like, we're not half-assing it. Like
I love
it's
that.
either like we're fully doing. Yeah, that's why I was smiling because I say half-ass a lot. Yeah. Okay. And then what about, and what I was thinking too, when you were talking about the mediocrity style exquisiteness, is that's kind of what I do in every first session for every client. It's we create an IP, a framework from what they do, because otherwise they're like, I'm really great at what I do and I just do it without thinking. And so we actually create a framework, and like you can see kind of down there, like that's mine on the wall.
Yes.
Like that's what we do. So that's what I was thinking when you were talking about that.
Yes. And you know what? More specifically, so this we talked about, this is the 8th gene key in what we call your vocation in the pearl sequence. And your vocation is like what becomes your biggest zone of genius. It's like your greatest talent that you're here to share with the world. So for example, you're saying, first meet with the client, first thing we do, get this foundation and strategic framework in place. Of course. So for me, I have the 36th gene key, the 34th gene key here, and the shadow is force. So typically I get a lot of clients who have been forcing business strategies that don't work for them. And I'm like, well, let's bring in human design and gene keys so that you're not forcing things anymore. Like,
Mhm.
let's bring in this nuance, and that helps alleviate the forcing energy that they have.
Mhm.
So it's just like little balls of
Little things.
wisdom that help you see things differently and just validate you and how you support your people.
Mhm. Yeah. And I imagine you use that in your messaging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Cool.
absolutely.
So I know you have a freebie in relation to this. Do you want to tell people about that?
Yes. So in the show notes, we have an ebook. It's called Actualize Your Genius with the Pearl. So obviously today we got into the weeds with human design and gene keys, which I think is really cool. But if you're like, I want to learn more about the gene keys and you want to understand what it means to actualize your genius with the Pearl sequence, this ebook will literally give you everything that you need to know about the Pearl sequence from an entrepreneurial lens. So by the end, you're going to understand how it shows up for you in business, how you can really showcase your genius and how you launch and how you sell and your messaging. And it's just going to be that internal permission slip where you're going to realize, well, this is energetically imprinted on me since I was born. It's been here the entire time. So that's my freebie that I have, which is going to be so much fun. And we did talk about messaging as well. And on February 24th, I have a special masterclass called Decode Your Genius. And this is specifically taking your gene keys and teaching you how to message with them so that you resonate with your ideal client and obviously sign more clients and help more people. It's going to make it easier to sell because you're not going to sound like a robot and you're going to be able to create stories from your own wisdom, which I think is really fun. So that'll be in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Can you tell me just quickly before we leave, have you got a couple more minutes?
Yes.
I just looked at the time. Sorry. Talking about the ideal client, do you help people identify who that is with this, or do people normally come to you and they already know who they want to work with?
So I have a mix of the people that come to see me. Usually, so in the Edge Mastermind, which is where I have all my energy and where I work with clients, they already know their ideal client and they're looking to scale to like 5-figure months and beyond. But I still get people that come to me and they don't know their ideal client. And it's so funny because what I can do is like I can look at their human design chart, and usually it's going to be a mix of like, okay, what experience and coaching credentials and trainings have you done, like the realistic 3D experience that you've lived? And then let's look at your zones of genius and the definition that you have and the openness that you have in your human design chart so that you can get specific. So for example, I literally just did a 2-hour session with someone today and we got really clear on her ideal client, and like she just shared everything that she'd been through. She's like, I beat cancer twice. I was a miserable person. Like I was just hated my life. Everyone thought I was so angry and I wasn't following what it is I wanted to do. And I was like, hey, human design, manifesting generator. Look at this. You're angry. You're not at peace right now. This is how you're designed to show up. Everything that you've been through, your ideal client is literally a previous version of you. And usually the people that I work with, they are using human design and gene keys and how they coach their clients as well. So there's like that connection too. But it's not just look at your gene keys and be like, oh, that's your ideal client. There's the nuance of, okay, what have you actually lived? What is it that you know in the 3D world? And how does human design and gene keys complement that? I think that's what's important.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for the clarification. And thank you for being willing to come on here and, really dive into what it is that you're about and what it is that you believe, and kind of, go a little sideways with that. So thanks for being so open and generous with your time. Yeah. And all of the links will be in the show notes. Anything else you wanted to say before we hop off?
Well, I wanted to say, a couple of things. I want to invite people, if you're like curious about more human design and gene keys, check out my podcast, Living in Fierce Alignment. I'm also going to be having Annalise on there as well. So we're going to be geeking out on strategy and all the things. It's going to be so good. And find me on Instagram at Kehla G. If you're totally new to human design and gene keys, let me know in the DMs. I'll be happy to support you. And I also want to say that I really love that I got to have this conversation with you. And I love that you challenged me with like the strategy side of things and like getting into the nitty gritty and the corner of it, because I've lived that experience where things are so woo woo and it's like, okay, and you can't see yourself in it. You can't see how it shows up in the 3D world. So I love that you had like really challenging questions, and I really loved seeing you like warmed up to it after a while, which I think is really cool. So I just want to thank you for that.
Yeah, that's right. I'm really happy to be curious. I mean, my worldview is that I'm a Christian, and then I see that I know that we live in a spiritual world. Like I understand energy, and I think that the two, the spirituality and the science, really blend. And then it gets muddy. And so, and I think we're not meant to understand a lot of it. So I think your perspective is of like, use this to get curious is a really good frame. And then where it serves you, great, lean in, and where it doesn't, great. And so yeah, again, thanks for being open and honest, and yeah, and willing to have the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Not
for
many
having
people
me.
would be brave when we're like, I'm skeptical, I don't believe you, let's have a chat. But I'm happy to have a chat.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
go
no.
you.
Oh yeah, no, that was great. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you for being able to have just a respectful conversation. That was really fun. So thank you so much, and I look forward to chatting with you soon. Bye.